Hello everyone and welcome to the Spurs Pursuit. I'm your host Martin Frank, and today with me on his debut on this channel I have an incredible guest to welcome. The award-winning content creator and podcaster Harry Scarfe, winning the Young Content Creator of 2025 and having his YouTube channel, Scarfe Spurs Talk Podcast, placed in the top 75 football fan channels during last year and also going into this year. So Harry, welcome onto the channel. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you, Martin. Thank you for that intro. It's very, very kind. It means a lot. And a lot of people can't say the channel name as well, so thank you for nailing that on the head. And we speak a lot, so thank you very much for having me on. And a lot to talk about, as there always is, Tottenham. So no, real pleasure to be here and a lot to get into. Thank you for having me.
Exactly. Me and Harry had already planned this podcast in advance, maybe 5-6 days ago, and no one was expecting that Igor Tudor news would be announced the way it's been announced. But before we get into that, I really want to appreciate Harry and what he does apart from on the field of football talks, because he also battles for autism, for equal rights in this sense, and also neurodiversity. So Harry, would you like to maybe say something that you're currently working on and continue to work on?
I'd love that, Martin. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, firstly. Yes, it's something that means a lot as someone who's autistic, and I'm an autism advocate as well. And I've recently launched a campaign which is in the works. Ultimately, people go, what can we see as evidence for that? There's a lot of planning that goes on behind the scenes that I'm currently undertaking. And that campaign is specifically focused on, in terms of education, and asking the government to build more SEN schools, which means more SEN school special places. Because I went to a SEN school and it changed my life. And that's a place for learning disabilities, but right now we're seeing a massive backlog with autism assessments and EHCPs. So, for example, people aren't getting support they deserve, and it's the fight for parents that they shouldn't be having to fight day and night, and it's something that I just don't think is right. And I've had first-hand experience of being really, really lucky and being treated well by the system, getting the right support. And I just don't think it should be a battle for those who are vulnerable with learning disabilities. It shouldn't be a battle to get an education, to get the support, and to set them up in life. It should be a given, should be a basic human right, in my view. So that's something that I would like to challenge. But there is also projects I have going on within football, and I've worked with previously Fulham Football Club and Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, even better, around fan accessibility. So that's mainly been around those with physical disabilities, but also neurodiversity, because I've seen around the sensory room, etc., learn about future club plans, what they're doing. And in my view, I'm not aiming this at Fulham and Tottenham, but based on what I've seen and what I've heard, I believe it's a tick boxing exercise at the moment. So I want to change that to something where there's real motive for the club to do something, because I believe there's a lot of people out there that love the game but currently don't attend that would like to. And I'm not asking for us, for example, in terms of being focused on noise sensitivity. I'm not saying let's have a silent football stadium, but I am saying what reasonable adjustments can be made that doesn't harm the normal match-going supporter, but can include those with neurodiverse. And as you can imagine, that's not an easy thing to do. So yeah, a lot going on, and I've been honoured to be up for awards as well. Spoke about the award I won there for football content, but I've been a finalist for a couple of others as well for the stuff with autism. So it's just amazing. So a lot to do. And lastly, we'll say as well, I'm doing a young ambassador course at a charity, Extraordinary Links, which they focus on providing activities for those with learning and physical disabilities. So they're doing a young ambassador course. So I'm learning a lot about public speaking, about helping them as a charity. So yeah, there's a lot going on. And I'm someone that, as much as I put out a lot on social media and try and give as much updates about me as possible, when it comes to my autism advocacy work, I prefer just to get on with it, because it matters more to me, rather than I've done this, I'm going to do that. I'd rather just do it, rather than constantly having to evidence it. So you may think, what's Harry actually doing? I do a lot without even mentioning it. I think I should have mentioned that, but that's too late. But Martin, thank you. Yeah, it's something that means a lot to me.
Exactly. Thank you for your input. Exactly how you mention it, that you're in the works of so many different projects, which is the reason why I really wanted other people to know exactly what you're doing. So brilliant work. Keep it up. You're doing a fantastic job, and you're making a lot of Spurs fans proud, like myself. So let's get right into the news, shall we? Igor Tudor today, after 43 days in charge, has been sacked from the club. Now, with this sacking, I did an article on this about an hour ago, come a lot of bad records that he has broken for all the wrong reasons. Now, number one is his 0% win rate in the Premier League, the first Tottenham Hotspur manager to ever do so, surpassing Christian Stellini's 25%. Secondly, he was just winning a total of 9 minutes out of a possible 450 in the Premier League, which is also by far the worst statistic we have ever seen as a Tottenham Hotspur manager. A 14% win rate overall, still making him the worst Tottenham Hotspur manager ever in history. And also, lastly, what I wanted to mention about Tudor was, the fact that his questionable decisions, which we'll get onto in a minute. But Harry, I want to come on to you. What is your assessment on, first of all, the appointment of Igor Tudor on Valentine's Day, because we haven't seen any honeymoon phase whatsoever with him, and secondly, the departure from the club?
Oh, goodness me, where do I start? Right, let me start by sending my thoughts and condolences that they go to Igor Tudor in particular, but also his family after the passing of his father, Mario. And while Tottenham means so much to us, and I'm just saying also we have to be very considerate of what Igor's gone through, and it'd be a horrible time for him at the moment. I can't even pretend to imagine what that's like at this moment for him with everything that he's battling. And just around the time of the final whistle against Forest, that would have been an awful day for him. Of course, with his dad taking priority, which is absolutely awful, and that's something I wouldn't wish him to go through. So although of course I'm frustrated that we haven't been able to bring in a manager early and make this decision, I think the club, from what we know, again, we don't see everything behind the scenes, but I believe they've I'm very critical of how the club handle things, but I will give them credit in this. I think they've handled it with real professionalism and class as well, in terms of given Tudor, I believe, that time, and they've come to a mutual decision. Before I get into Tudor and how I thought it was wrong, I'd just say credit to him, because rumours have it that he hasn't taken a payout and has just walked out and clearly realised the club's in a mess and I'm going to help them. So I do want to give him credit for that, because if we're talking about the serial winners here, the Mourinho's and Conte's, make no mistake about it, they'll be after that money. So he does deserve credit in that, and realising that, listen, we've got more important things to focus on, and money could all of a sudden be an issue. It's not at the moment as a juggernaut of the club, but it could be an issue if you go down. That's something that you have to really face with. But the appointment for me was wrong in the first place. We're talking about someone that's got no Premier League experience. I believe he hasn't really heard of Tottenham. Of course, his Marseille side did play Tottenham across two legs. And what I mean by that is the fact it feels like we're in a pre-season experiment, where it has been anyway, I should say, talking about in the past now, but been constant players in different positions. When he first came in, that first game in particular against Arsenal, he didn't have much other choice than square pegs and round holes. But for all the remaining games, he's had players coming back as well. Had players coming back, and we haven't been able to capitalise on that. So I really want to get into why he was appointed in the first place, why we thought it was a good idea. It just didn't make sense to me at all. I get it a little bit more at the start of the season, but not at this point. Yes, okay, he has a good record of coming in and making an instant impact. Premier League is a completely different league. And I wouldn't say a Premier League experience is given. You've either got to have Premier League experience or relegation experience. You've got to have something there. We brought in someone that just doesn't understand the Premier League for me, and that was wrong. And I believe it's right to get rid of him now. I'd rather, twist rather than stick, if I'm being honest with you. I think by ending by mutual consent benefits all parties. I think it's the right thing to do, I may add as well. So, of course, it's not ideal to go for another manager, but I think it's right. I know we get onto it, so I don't want to spoil it, but the next appointment's got to be right. It's one of those where I go, thank you, Igor, for your best efforts. It's a real shame, though, as well, Martin, if I'm being honest with you, because I thought we turned a corner. I'll hold my hands up on this a little bit. I did think, oh my God, we're going to win all the remaining games of this 15th, 14th. I'm not one of them. But I thought we might, be okay. We might, be able to nick a win or two before the end of the year, because going and getting a point at Anfield's one thing. But I thought we played well for close to 90 minutes. I can't think of many, if any, games this season I've been able to say that. And then that second leg against Atletico gave me real hope. And then we knew that players are returning. Bergvall, Doggy, Richarlison, all these players returning. Then we found out that Maddison's could be back for the end of the year. It just felt like a really good period. We lose 3-0 to the Forest. Tudor's father passes. It just can't enjoy things as Spurs. And then Vicario as well, to add that he needs surgery. All of a sudden when you think, are we out of this, or could we be okay? Everything comes crashing back down. So yeah, wish Igor all the best, but complete wrong appointment. And Lange and Vinay in particular have to look at themselves and go, surely we're the problem, not everybody else.
Fantastic points you've made there, Harry. Thank you so much. You mentioned a few things that I will touch upon myself as well. So you've mentioned that we needed a manager that makes an instant impact, which Tudor sort of had coming in. It made, in a sense, you could maybe understand the reasons why they were doing so. However, it turned so sour because actually the statistic that I was thinking of to the top of my head that I couldn't get behind was actually the fact that Tudor now ranks as the joint third worst manager in Premier League history to go his first 5 games in the Premier League without a victory, equaling Ange Postecoglou's record, the ex-former Tottenham boss, during his time this season at Nottingham Forest. So Obviously, the impact that we were all hoping Tudor would have, that we got behind him, he didn't have. And then to add, I also thought we had, cut a corner after the performance at Anfield. I thought we were actually brilliant, maybe in a sense, tactically more aware, something we've been begging for, the passion, the fight. And then you see the Atletico Madrid home leg where, we've struggled at home, and of course we've gone 25 games in European competitions unbeaten at home, which doesn't match with the Premier League record that we only have 2 victories this season at home. But we all sort of felt that corner had been turned and we were, pushing for something bigger. Then Nottingham Forest comes and it's a proper slap in the face. So, Harry, on to you now. Igor Tudor, sacked, and rightfully, I also pay my, absolute thoughts and prayers to him, to his family, because it must be absolutely devastating what he's going through. Like you mentioned, no pay cut interested, because maybe he feels a sense of responsibility for, not gaining any points in this relegation battle for us, and maybe he'd think that it would be morally unfair, and also the fact that he's stepping away from the job as well. Now, do you think the international break has maybe come for the perfect time for Tottenham Hotspur? Because, Forest, a victory for them. West Ham United, okay, the loss against Aston Villa, but they've been gaining momentum, only 2 losses out of 7 games in their recent fixtures. And also Sunderland with a victory against Newcastle. That would be our next opposition. So maybe that international break allows the players to have some breathing space as well?
Might have hit the nail on the head, in my view, and you put it really nicely in. I'm forgetting as well, but I knew Sunderland was our next opponent, but forgetting about their huge result as well against Newcastle. You're absolutely right to mention that, and it does come at the right time. And so often they say, and it's right, that if you lose before an international break, it can affect the confidence. But in our case, because we've changed the manager, because so much has happened and will happen as well, by the way, we've got a lot more to come with who's going to come in and the coaching staff, blah, blah, blah. A lot's going to happen. So the point is, it's different in our case. I think it's broken in particular the momentum of the other clubs, which is absolutely huge. So yeah, it's come at the right point, and Total Tudor's father as well, having that period to work out what's going to happen with him, which we've now worked out. And it just, for everybody, it makes sense. What would have been the worst for this to happen during our Champions League period, although the Premier League is a priority, or it's 2 games a week, and that would, I don't know how the club would have managed that. They probably wouldn't have, knowing the people that we've got in charge of the club and how they deal with day-to-day things. But no, I think you're absolutely right to mention it's come at the right time for us, and make no mistake about it, that these next 7 games are absolutely huge. And for me now, it's about bringing in somebody, again, everyone's spoiled what you've got planned, but it's about bringing in somebody that, I don't think it's about the tactics. I think it's about installing that confidence and belief in the dressing room and bringing them together, which Tudor unfortunately failed to do. And I think doing that delivers results. I don't know about you, Martin, but me personally speaking as a fan, what do I know? I don't want to speak for people here, but I think people will feel the same. It's just about getting a result. If we grind it out here and there, I'm not really worried. If you scrape mostly draws, a couple of wins, I think would probably be enough. But there is a little bit of competition down the bottom. I think we've got to, forget about playing the Spurs way, which I know that we want to play. We haven't played at all this season, let me add, so that shouldn't be a problem. But we shouldn't be people pleasing, and that's why I feel strongly as well about who we bring in, and the fact it shouldn't be to help someone with their coaching career, whether it be start it or kind of excel it. It should be about bringing in someone who's been in this situation before and knows how to keep us up. We're in a dangerous situation, Martin. We're in this international break, which is perfect, as you say. I agree with you on that. And we've got the time. But not many people can be interested unless they have an affiliation to the club. Who's going to risk that on their CV? I've taken Tottenham down potentially. That's career ended. Look at someone like Sean Dyche, right? Even on his CV, I took Tottenham down. You lose credibility and respect, boom, like that, because of the size of the club that Tottenham are. So we can have a real problem attracting the names that we want to. It's a real worry for short and long term. And our Premier League status is at risk. The club have got it wrong time and time again. And even this new board have got it wrong time and time again in just a few weeks, months that they've been here. So I'm concerned for the future. For the international break, if we focus on a positive for now, that's definitely come at a good time.
What a fantastic point you've made there. And I will allude to that. I've seen many accounts on Twitter or across all social platforms, Tottenham fans, alluding to the fact that how are the clubs sleeping and still Igor Tudor is in a job? But as you've already mentioned, I think they've handled the job fantastically in allowing Tudor to spend the time with the family. And it feels like a lot of people in this day and age are lacking that empathy, that sympathy that goes with it. And to add, we have 13 players out on international duty, 13 senior players out on international duty, meaning even when the manager comes in on a Monday or Tuesday, Wednesday, can we say, he still has 10 days to prepare for the Sunderland game. And now, also, you've mentioned two people that we need to really quickly speak about is Johan Lang and Vinay Venkatesan, because, as you've mentioned, for the short period they've been in charge and, had the responsibility that they should have, they've made so many poor decisions and our club have been spiralling to a relegation. Like you mentioned, we are in danger. We are, a threat is occurring right now for Tottenham Hotspur's Premier League status. This is something we as Tottenham fans would never have imagined to be speaking about in months like March, going into April, potentially going into May as well, where we play our final 4 Premier League fixtures. So, Harry, what needs to be done in the summer? If we somehow grind out these 7 games or we do go down, what needs to happen at that board level?
That's the all-important question, ultimately, and it's one that will be avoided for now because it's about what league we'll be in, and that's the ultimate different answer. So before the club come out with these kits and like the frozen prices, all these things, I would encourage them to, wait and see what happens with our fate before rushing into this type of decisions, which is really weird on both a business and football club point of view. But anyway, away from that, I know they've got to get stuff done. Away from that, listen, I believe, and I hate to say it about my own club, and a lot of people think, you probably enjoy saying it, and it comes off the tongue. Absolutely not. But I do think the club is broken from top to bottom. I believe that. I think when you have, people upstairs that are incompetent, and I'm talking about non-footballing people making footballing decisions, eventually it's going to trickle down through the club and becomes rotten. And I believe for so long it's just been rotten upstairs. The players have had an okay mentality. The manager's always done okay, and coaches etc. have always done okay. But I believe it's just trickled down from the owners to the board. Now it's affecting the team as well. I think we're at the club where we've got just such a poor mentality throughout, from again top to bottom. It's like one of those that you've done a deep dive investigation, a police investigation. Let's say they were doing an investigation, but for whatever reason they investigate Tottenham. Of course, completely different context. They looked at it and go, "That's wrong. That's not functioning." I just love there to be an investigation. So I think the standards have really fallen at this football club, if we're honest. So what needs to change will be different from what will actually change. That's the problem. It goes without saying, of course, the manager will be a big focus this summer. But ultimately, I think we have to prioritise players that want to be here, people who bleed Tottenham and bleed the badge. And even right now, Martin, I know I'm going back a little bit, but I'm looking at the youth academy and going, this raw talent, I don't want to ruin your career by going down, but if you're knocking on the door every single day, every single week, every single game, for me, especially if they're, Tottenham through and through, Tottenham fans, they're local, I really want them in the team because they've got something to prove. They're going to fight to be in that team compared to those that are strolling about. I love Christian Barrow. I'm sure me and you, Martin, will be in agreement that he's a class player, right? And might have different views on him as a captain, but he's a really good player. But the way that I see him stroll back that second goal is, for me, accepting defeat. I don't want to single out him in particular, but that as an example. We've seen it with Van der Ven in the past, his attitude, Spurs, his attitude, even off the pitch with Thomas Frank again, whatever you thought of him. It's now a point, and this is both a short and long-term thing. We need people that bleed Tottenham, and we are struggling in London derbies, Chelsea and Arsenal under Thomas Frank. That was just pathetic. I don't believe that's a manager problem. I believe it's a Tottenham problem. It's a player mentality problem. And I think upstairs, when you accept mediocrity, if you like, then again it does trickle down, and that's the thing. There's so much that needs to change. I think that Lange and Vinay, if I may touch on it, have been a just total disaster. And let's be clear, Lange was sacked by Aston Villa. However people want to say it in a different way, sugarcoat it, he was sacked for underperforming. If you read the full-length Aston Villa club statement, it says for consistent underperforming. They were clear with it. It was for underperforming. They weren't even respectful about it because that was the case. And Villa fans were jubilant, and that's not an exaggeration. Especially those that are really interested in A, finance, but B, they really, really deep dive. Like a lot of people that they've done podcasts, for example. There's some podcasts that I know that Aston Villa people that they dive into the state of the football club, which is very different to what other football clubs do. It's really interesting because they believe that he was a big problem and how they've done a lot better. Forget about 2026. Throughout the season at points they've been really, really strong. Again, competitive on more than one front. And of course, that's largely down to the manager, but they believe that's with Johan Lang not being here and the recruitment's improved. And he's just coming. I listen to him and think, right, I want to give you a second chance. I want to be kind. I listen to him. I don't think he knows what he's talking about. I feel like it's like, imagine you're teaching a classroom. You've never done any teaching before. You never spoke to any children or taught any children before. That's what it feels like. When you spend however much you're told, 8.5 minutes talking about Conor Gallagher. With all due respect to Conor Gallagher, with all due respect to the club and the signing and Johan Lang, that's not something that requires that much conversation. And then when asked about the summer and the future, speak about it for about 35 seconds. That for me tells you all you need to know. There is no plan, there is no vision, it's panic buy, there's no recruitment strategy there. Gallagher's been on the books if you believe reports. I don't believe everything, but I believe he has been chased by the club for a long while. That's not inventive recruitment. We've got a player like him and Pat Matasar in terms of covers box to box. Again, I welcome the signing of Gallagher because I knew there would be nothing. The alternative was nothing, because I know this club, we just have to do so much better. Larty and Vinay, of course, he's got to do better with some of the things he says, but I do believe he's been hung out to dry, and that's my honest opinion, and maybe slightly unpopular. I believe he's been told by Enoch, oh, we'll do this, we change the wage structure, we spend this, we promise that. And Vinay's looked at it, intelligent guy, I believe, and said all the right things. I believe he has the commitment, has the heart and desire to do the right thing. You hear things like he's always not just the board meetings, but he's always going to watch Spurs women. He's always putting the effort in to speak to fan advisory boards. I've spoken to people that set up protests around Tottenham recently, some good, some bad, and they all say that Vinay's been really cooperative and has been fantastic. So I believe, based on that and my own opinion, that he's been hung out to dry, and he's made to look like an idiot. But ultimately, when you say those things, you have to be held accountable, even if you've been let down above. And I believe people are promised the earth at Tottenham in various different positions and under-deliver. I believe that Paratici, our end on this, was promised a lot, walked out instantly, and saw bottom of the table Fiorentina as a more attractive prospect than Tottenham. What does that tell you? That concerns me, Martin. I don't know about you. So I think people have failed. Tudor was come in, was like, oh, everything's going to be okay. Then within 7 days, so negative. And that wasn't just because we lost the game. That's because he knew that he was promised something that wasn't here. Thomas Frank as well promised something that he didn't get. I mean, Vinay would promise, Lang will soon find out. And that's the problem. And the managers fall for it. People at the club fall for it. The players are falling for it. Romero, when he signed the contract extension, for example, would have fallen for it. The reality is that the problem is upstairs, that they aren't interested in us as fans. They aren't interested in the football club.
Fantastically, but even I can allude to Daniel Levy leaving in September, where we all thought that there was a massive turning point. All us as fans, we were sold on it as well. And like you mentioned, Lang is, in a sense, doing certain jobs he's never done before. So he's being placed in a position that he's never done, which is a reflection on the field. We've got Sousa, a left back, playing right midfield, where he's never played before. You have Conor Gallagher as a box-to-box midfielder playing at right wing. Lucas Bergvall playing at right wing, somewhere he's never played. So what is happening at the top of this club is translating onto the most important, and that is the pitch, where we are playing square pegs in round holes, and it's just not working, and it's just a reflection of what is happening above and above and above. And you make some fantastic points there about Vinay Venkatesham, and even when he came in for that Europa League run, he was Bodo Glimt away from home, with the scarves, and there was a real effort to do a lot of positive things. And I think you make some fantastic points that he has been hung out to dry and he has been made to look like an idiot, and there has to be a big change. And I believe maybe selling the club is the most obvious positive fix that could happen. Now, on to Igor Tudor's departure. There have been many speculation by Matt Law, Fabrizio Romano. There have been names put out like Roberto De Zerbi being chased by Tottenham Hotspur for multiple weeks now, trying to push him to not join in the summer. But now there have been names like Sean Dyche thrown into the mix, Ryan Mason. We've had names along, Chris Hughton even. So, Harry, if you are in charge of this decision, hypothetically, who is your go-to to get us out of this relegation? You've already alluded to the fact that the tactics and the formation are not so important, but the mentality and, changing the confidence. So who would be your take?
If I was in charge at Tottenham or had a position of power to influence this decision, for me, I'd bring it down to two candidates. I totally understand that not a lot of people, like I said to you earlier, Martin, would be willing to take this job unless they have a connection to Tottenham. That'll be purely down to the fact that it can ruin their managerial career. Some, before it's even got started, if some of the people that are linked to us step in, either haven't got a coaching career already or are just starting out, they'll ruin it. And even those that have done something in their managerial career, you take Tottenham down, that's potentially career-ending, or certainly makes you look, in terms of CV, far more unattractive. For me, two candidates I'd eliminate it down to Harry Redknapp and Sean Dyche, which I know completely different people. I believe right now the most important thing is to give the players a lift. And I said this before Igor Tudor was appointed, and I believe that his philosophy is going there, not necessarily shout, I'm not saying he's a nasty person, but I believe he's a kind of tough guy, tough love. And that works day to day in a lot of other jobs. But I believe with this group of players who have a weak mindset and are low on confidence, which is on them, that's their fault largely, I believe they need a lift, arm around the shoulder. That is what gives me for me, the most hope in us staying up. If we go in there and just lie to them a little bit. I think Ange, I liked him, don't get it wrong, wanted him to stay. Didn't want him to appoint him in the first place, I'm honest, but I love what he achieved, and I did want to stick with him, I will say that. But he, I believe, got it right. And it was a lot of bluff. He said things that, weren't true factually. And I believe he lied to the players as well in terms of, you're better, you should be doing this, you should be doing that, you're winners kind of thing. And I look at this group of players, even with everybody fit, and I think top six is probably lucky rather than what some fans see, top four, can we challenge for titles? Let's not forget about that at the start of the season. Fans are going, can we challenge for top four? Can it be more than that? People getting way excited, as we all fans do. I will add that. But no, for me, it'd be down to those two. I believe that Harry Redknapp, the game's moved on a lot. I will say that, moved on an awful lot. I don't believe that he can have that tactical knowledge. I don't think that'd be right in that sense. However, I believe having him in there, even if it's in the coaching setup or he's accompanied by other people, I believe he'll give them a lift. Just say, go out there and play football. And that's what they need right now. And in terms of foreign players not respecting him, which a lot of people will be very quick to throw at me, and people will listen to this and go, yeah, but that would have worked in the past. Not only is the game moved on, but a lack of respect. I think if he tells his story briefly of his managerial career, I'm talking about in particular the players he's coached, the list goes on, I'll just list a couple for time, such as Gareth Bale, for example, Luka Modric, player that he's coached, that instantly people go, do you know what, I'm going to listen to you and I'm going to respect you, I'm going to work for you. And the other one I say Sean Dyche is because he's been in this situation before. Incredible job at Burnley, over 10 years, kept them up every single time, no joke, and Everton done a fantastic job. I don't believe Dyche will take the job. I said this before his comments on TalkSport the other day. I don't take too much for his comments on TalkSport because all he's really saying is, look, I'm not in talks with Spurs because I'm here. Doesn't mean he won't be in the future because Tudor's still in the job at that point. So people just use that again to their advantage. I am talking specifically about the media. I think they'd say, look, Sean Dyche isn't interested in Tottenham. That's not a good example for that. I would have him, I think, as my first choice, Sean Dyche, because he's been in this situation. He knows how to grind out result. It'll be ugly, but I don't think we need to care by this point. That's who I'd eliminate it to. Part of me thinks, come on, Tim Sherwood, let's see what you can do. You're giving it the big one all season. You're giving it the big one now. What can you do? But I think, it'd be a total disaster if I'm being honest with you. I think he gives it the big one, but will deliver very little. And just briefly on the likes of Ben Davies and Ryan Mason, for example. And Ryan Mason, firstly, 10 away defeats in a row at West Brom. Nice guy, affiliated to the club. I have no problem with him being in the coaching setup, but definitely not the manager, and probably not even the assistant manager as well, because it's about results now. It's not about performances. It's not about helping people's coaching career. Ryan Mason would be pleasing as Spurs supporters, but it's got to be about results. That's what he didn't deliver at West Brom, even when his team was playing well. We left them on the cusp of relegation in a very dangerous position, so that's totally wrong. Ben Davies, I can see him getting into coaching. I believe he is interested as well. I'm all for helping him, but not right now, not the situation we're in. Summer and beyond, if Tottenham wants to help Ben Davies with a player coaching or anything like that, any types of coaching setup, not now. Again, for me, it's not about pleasing people now. We've got to be like we were with Tudor, respectful and classy, yes, but now that's over. We've got to focus on what's best for Tottenham. And I think that's just bringing in and forgetting about a lot of other things and delivering results. So yeah, for me, it would be between Sean Dyche and it would be Harry Redknapp, with Sean Dyche being, for me, my number one candidate.
Yes, and I like what you alluded to as well, is that a lot of people aren't realising how damaging the relegation will be on the CV. Like, people say that but it won't be, because this is not the person that is taking them down. It's on Thomas Frank and it's on Igor Tudor. No, it's not though, is it? It's actually on this last one that is coming in. Because this last one has the full control of results now and trying to get out of this sticky situation. It won't be as much as Igor Tudor. It will be more about the one coming in now if he fails to deliver, Premier League survival. And that is a fantastic point that you make that no one has alluded to online or anywhere. I will disagree with you on one little thing, and that is the Ryan Mason appointment. Okay. I think you make some fantastic points. The West Bromwich stint was absolutely horrific. 10 away defeats in a row. Since then, actually, West Brom have still struggled. And the only positive that I'm saying with that is he knows the players the most well out of all possible candidates that have some managerial experience, if that makes sense. Because, with Ange Postecoglou winning the Europa League, he was there. Do I think that would be the correct appointment? Definitely not. But the reason I'm saying that I can see the club actually choosing him is because, he's already had 2 stints as the interim and he can make it a hat-trick there. However, the dangers of going down with him would be that he would be the first manager ever to take down in the same season a team from the Championship and also the Premier League. So it makes a lot of, sense why it wouldn't happen. Harry, you quickly wanted to say something, so I'll leave you the space to do so.
No. I think you're absolutely right. I was just going to not push back a little bit. She kind of, explained, I think, very well. But for me, I'd just say with Ryan Mason, I believe it would be maybe potentially a lack of respect thing. But when the likes of Harry Kane were there and some of these players that he either played with or had a relationship with was different, I don't think he has much in the bank there. But whereas Ben Davies would, for example, have a little bit more, I believe, again, what do I know? I'm not in the dressing room, but I believe he retains a bit of respect within the dressing room. But even that, I look at Ben Davies and go, I don't see you as a shouty figure. You're going to need someone with it. I think the conclusion that we come to, Martin, is that I don't think one person solves Tottenham issues. I don't think the whole coaching team solves Tottenham issues in the long term. But for now, I think we bring in a lot of people. And I think in the coaching setup, I'd love to see the likes of whoever it may be. There's quite a lot, by the way, Chris Shuton, Jermaine Defoe, that I would like to see back, even the likes of Ledley Kim. It's those that have an affiliation to Tottenham that care the most. And it's those that have the experience that are really key in this situation. I'm keen to move on from Tudor, but I look at that and go, no affiliation to Tottenham, no Premier League experience, no relegation battle experience. I mean, who thought it was a good idea other than the fact that 2 or 3 times in his career has come in and made an instant impact with a completely different players at a different club in a different country at a different time? I don't understand that. And again, I don't work in a football club, and I'm not even going to say that I'll do a better job. I'm not even saying that. So I know it's an irony of me challenging it, but I would challenge that appointment. I think it's completely wrong. At least I understand, Frank. Premier League experience, taking Brentford from strength to strength. You've done really well there, overachieved, negative net spend. I get it, but I don't understand Igor Tudor whatsoever. I will throw something in there, and I know this will be controversial, but I am sometimes at the best of times, so I'm not going to shy away from it. This is how I feel. And it'll be about Daniel Levy. Daniel Levy was not perfect. I wouldn't want him back, let me be clear. But we wouldn't be in this situation if Daniel Levy was at the club. I don't believe that. And you know me, Martin, I was someone that defended Thomas Frank a lot. And that's mainly solely, it's not to do with Thomas Frank, it's to do with the fact that Enoch and the board are the main problem, and the manager gets the majority of the blame. I saw what he'd done at Brentford. I loved his Brentford team, and I know that he can achieve. I actually do think he is capable of a top 6 job. Some managers aren't capable to step up. I thought he was. Wrong time, maybe, and he didn't deliver, of course. But my point was that it went past the window. It was me, you sack him early or you stick with him until the end of the year. The time that we took the decision is flirting with relegation, in my view, especially with the guy that we brought in. We had to get it right. We didn't. I said it at the time. I feel the same now. I would have rather stuck with Frank than Igor Tudor. That would be still unpopular to this day. It was definitely unpopular when I said it at the time. It did not go down well. But my point is just go back to it briefly on Daniel Levy. I believe that Thomas Frank would have been sacked close to that North London derby, which I believe was before Christmas. So he would have been sacked by then. I don't believe Igor Tudor would have been appointed. I don't believe he would have been in this situation. I don't know who would have come in, I reckon. I don't know who. Honestly, don't know who. Maybe Sean Dyche before he's appointed at Nottingham Forest, maybe, and I think we finish about 14th or 15th. It's a bad season. You're right off the books, but I don't think A, we would have been in a relegation battle. B, I don't think we would have gone down. 3, the managerial situation would have been different. Levy wasn't perfect. It annoys me in lots of ways, like you hear about Romero, the contract clause, things like that. I just think totally wrong. When we think about Romero, to let him go for just under 60 million or have a gentleman's agreement with top Spanish club, you think, really? What about if he plays well and increases in value? So I have my concerns with Levy, but we wouldn't be in this situation if he was here. And that isn't credit to Levy. It's a shame on Vinay and Lange, really.
This is a perfect conclusion right there. That it's not the reflection of actual Daniel Levy, it's the reflection of what's come after Levy. Because I agree with you, I don't think we would have been in this mess. And even on TalkSport, Harry Redknapp was actually saying that he had a phone call from Daniel Levy that before the Anfield game, that Daniel Levy actually told him that I would have appointed you in charge for the Anfield game for the remainder of the season to try and keep us up because the club is in a mess. With Daniel Levy, I fully agree with you. I think that the way his vision of the club was just simply the business aspect, and he was doing his very best to deal with it from the business side. And you have to sort of look at it from the business side and, say, hats off to what Daniel Levy actually built at the club from taking over in 2001, until 2025 is a massive transition. However, we needed someone to come in and actually push us because the foundations are there, the training centre, the stadium, everything is in place for us to become a top team to compete for all trophies. And with Daniel Levy, it wasn't being achieved on a regular basis in any way, shape or form. The issue is what's come next, and that's, Vinay Venkatesh and Johan Lange actually bringing us further down. Now, you make some fantastic points there, Harry, and I will mention Thomas Frank that you've alluded to, and this is my question. Where has it all gone wrong then? Has it been Ange Postecoglou sort of putting the Premier League to the side and focusing on the Europa League, which actually brought the flowers, it brought the success that we needed? But on the other hand, has it maybe installed some, acceptance of defeat in this, mentality of the group? Or is it a different issue? Is it maybe Thomas Frank's lack of, to dare is to do system of football because it was much more pragmatic? Where do you think it all went wrong?
I think in terms of talking about main problem, I think we have to write off the manager immediately, because otherwise we're saying about 20 to 25 managers that all of a sudden it's their fault. It doesn't sit right with me when the likes of Antonio Conte, Jose Mourinho, and serial winners even in Ange Postecoglou are in there. It doesn't sit right with me to say that. I think the main problem for me is poor recruitment, and also now a poor mentality that largely comes from the players, but I'm not saying it started from them, but it goes all around the club. That for me is the main issue. Yes, that Europa League trophy is paper over the cracks in terms of league form, but people don't talk about how well we've done in the League Cup. We got to the latter stages, 2 or 3, I think a couple of games away. We beat Liverpool in that first leg, and we really actually competed in that competition because we were competing in the Europa League and battling a miserable Premier League season. Nobody focused on that, and the media gave Ange a lot harder time than they did Thomas Frank. That's something to note. Again, I think Frank was well liked to the media because he was a nice guy, had been around the Premier League before. So again, why it matters what the media say, even though we're Tottenham fans, we're influenced by the media, whether we even like them or not. When you consistently hear the same thing, like Ange Highline, it comes within you. Whereas I look at it and go, I think we're even worse defensively than we ever have been. If I'm honest with you, this is under Igor Tudor, who's meant to be a defensive manager. He says he's not, but that's his record. If you look at possession, you look at the way he plays. I just find it baffling he's even said that. Martin, the problems go very, very deep. But I don't think, for example, Thomas Frank's the problem. And I'd love to say it today, but for my own sake, I don't think it's even worth it. I'm not saying that Frank done a good job, because he didn't. And maybe it was even the right thing for him to go. I'm not even going to try and put up an argument that. But I will put an argument out that he's this poison. Because make no mistake about it, if we go down, it's all Thomas Frank's fault, and fans will start to heckle him. And I just don't think that's right in any way, even if he was the problem. But he was not the problem for me. Maybe, okay, with the too big for him. But I just think you could have anyone in charge of Tottenham, whether it be right now or any point this season, and we wouldn't necessarily be in a much better place. I think the problems are deeper than we think, if I'm being honest. And injuries are a big factor. They're a huge, huge factor. But I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist. But when do you go, something's got to be wrong? Every club that gets injuries, every club's getting more injuries because they play more games, such as the UEFA format. So those big clubs are now having that disadvantage, which does level it out in the league a little bit, which is why I believe you see the likes of Newcastle fall so often. You saw Man United and Tottenham fall so much last year. So, this UEFA changes, if you like, to the way that all European competitions, all three, work. They do benefit the smaller clubs in terms of the big clubs will play more games, therefore you think directly get more injuries, just to throw that out there. But it's hard to pinpoint one thing, but I would say, because I'd love to go, the owners and the board. People go, there's a new look board, the owners have always been here and we've had some success under them. Okay, yeah, fair enough. But I believe when you neglect something for so long, you've got a falling building or a falling tower like that. If you just leave it, one day it will fall. One day it's going to fall, right? And people are going to be like, oh my goodness, this is fall. We haven't noticed this, right? Because if it slowly falls every day, you're not going to notice. Over time, you just think it's normal to be like that. And one day it'll be completely like that. That is how I view Tottenham. Other than the fact that Vinay and Lange have come in, and instead of the building falling like this, it's falling like that. And then Igor Tudor's come in, it's gone like that, completely, like for a flash, for a blink of the eye. And that's the way I view it, and that's the best example that I can use, because Tottenham Hotspur is a prime example of having this mansion in the terms of the training ground and the stadium. And someone called it a cereal bar. I think mansion is a better way to go about it. No furniture inside it. And not only no furniture inside it, but no intent to buy furniture, no intent to even look in the market for furniture. That's the best way to describe Tottenham in a nutshell for me. And until something changes, we go nowhere. Of course, we want to stay in the Premier League this year, great. But I don't think lessons will be learned. Lessons will not be learned. They throw one individual under the bus, might be Lang. I'd be glad if he's gone, if that is the case. But it's not just down to one individual. Until ENIC and whoever it be, the Lewis family, they just need to realise that this football club matter. And I wouldn't even say it's a matter of money, because we have spent money, but it's been wasted incredibly poorly. And for me, I'd go as far as saying, Martin, lastly, that the January window is negligence. And I talk about the falling building. If you see something collapsing, you see someone falling over in the road, it'd be quite horrible to just leave them and to do nothing. That's the way I view it at top. They've done nothing. They've seen it. They know what the situation is, and they've done nothing. Yes, it was right to Brennan Johnson, I do feel, having seen him since, and I believe he's fallen off a little bit and struggling for Wales as well, having missed the penalty. So I think that was the right thing to cash in, and that's the caveat to what I was saying. Daniel Levy wouldn't have done that, and that would have been a negative thing if Levy was here. So to contradict a little bit what I was saying, but the reason this matters for me is just the fact that we're in a really difficult position. We've made so many poor decisions. I'd love to pinpoint one person. I think the Enoch and the board are the main problem, Martin, but even these players are going, we need another complete overhaul, negative mentality. And I believe that like Van der Ven and Romero, they may deny it, but I believe they unfortunately have checked out. If they haven't checked out altogether, they've certainly checked out at points in games. That's never acceptable. We need fight and passion, desire, togetherness over quality and over tactics.
Fantastically put. And the way you mentioned the building falling with Igor Tudor, and it's falling rapidly, and now the new manager that comes in, is he able to hold the building as a Superman and keep us up? So Harry, alluding to what you've mentioned, the negligence of the board in January transfer window, selling Brennan Johnson for 35 million seems like perfect, amazing business. There is no issue in that. Selling him on the 1st of January, you have the whole month to replace him. The issue is, who do you replace him with? A 19-year-old left-back from Brazil, and Conor Gallagher, who has been absolutely horrific since his arrival. Not completely his fault, being played out of position. Now, Harry, the final 7 games, a possible 21 points. How many points do you think is enough to survive in Tottenham's position in the Premier League? And how many points do you think Tottenham Hotspur will actually get in these final 7 games? That's 3 games in April and 4 games in May.
Martin, that's all an important question, and thank you for asking me that. I think what we always want is going to be different to what we actually get.
Yeah.
I'll start out by saying that I think we do stay in the Premier League, and even under Igor Tudor, this is my position, although I was saying that with absolutely no confidence and hiding behind the cushion or behind the sofa most of the time, if I'm honest. I think we finished 17th, and the reason I always thought we'd stay up is because of the goal difference. That's been shrinking, don't get me wrong, but the goal difference is okay. Is now negative 10. Because we lost 3-0 to Forest, theirs is just negative 12. So all of a sudden, we're no longer having a better goal difference. But my point is, like, West Ham have negative 21. Even Leeds have only got negative 11. So that goal difference advantage is really going. At one point, we had a 10-15 superior goal difference. So we had it at positive 2, positive 3 for ages. So it's difficult. We're on 30 points at the moment, Martin. I have said since January that I think 38 points keeps you in the Premier League. I'm very keen to stick to that. I think 38 points will be 37 to 38 will be the cut-off point, and that's the thing. And it's so difficult talking to you today to predict how many points Tottenham are going to get. I'm sure you can understand, as in not knowing who's going to come in makes a massive difference. If no disrespect, if Ryan Mason's here, a little bit less confidence, someone who's got the experience to do so. I personally think we only win 1 and we get a few draws, and I think we do get 38 points to stay up on goal difference.
Yeah, I really can't even see that one win that we're speaking about, because the way things have been going. But maybe really this is what we need, a manager that knows the club inside out and actually changes what we see on the pitch, and we maybe see some more fight, some less anxiety in the stadium from the fans themselves, because many fans were never behind Igor Tudor, and there have been links as well that we haven't mentioned. Adolf Hutter potentially coming in from AS Monaco, and we've also heard Roberto De Zerbi, which we also haven't talked about, which are just insane to be speaking about. That I really agree with you. I think this is exactly what we need right now. Someone who knows the club from the inside, someone who goes back to the basics. It's been mentioned by fans and pundits constantly, and then you look at Igor Tudor changing formation from game to game and tweaking the tactics too much. The players looking absolutely confused and bereaved in what they're actually meant to be doing on the field, leading to confusion, and that translates onto the fans. And right now we just need to see some passion. And you mentioned Romero and his body language for the second goal. It's absolutely appalling that this is our captain and this is what we're going in, but trying to remain positive. I agree. I think we are able to remain in the Premier League, because the form technically might go out the window for the final 7 games. It really might depend on the heart, desire and luck ultimately. And you look at, on paper, we have the far superior team compared to West Ham, compared to Leeds United and even Nottingham Forest. So I've looked at Forest fixtures, I've looked at West Ham's fixtures, and I'd say Nottingham Forest have the hardest run in the final 7 games, so there could be a lot of twists coming in. Harry, last 2 questions for you before we wrap it up. I think you've been fantastic today. One question, the first one coming in, is which player can you most likely trust or will be the difference maker in this last 7 games if Tottenham Hotspur are able to get out this sticky situation? Who do you think will be the player to have the biggest influence in these last 7 games?
Martin, as a podcast host myself, I love the question. That's a really unique one. For me, it'd be Archie Gray. I think it's someone that's been really consistent. And a lot of people will be quick to say we need experience in this battle. And while I'm sure they'll bring the fight or say the right things in the dressing room, we're looking for consistency. We're looking for fight. And it's not about words, because we have a lot of them at the club, especially from upstairs. It's about action. I look at Archie Gray as someone that will just have head down and banging performances. I have confidence you could put him in pretty much every position on that football pitch. He's played, 5 positions, I think, this season, and he can put in a really solid performance. So for me, he'd be the one that I go, okay, you've got to be in the team for every single game, and I trust you. I'd love to say, some of the, because ultimately, if you look at some of our best players, they're not necessarily the ones that have been the most consistent or that I rely on. The likes of Van der Ven or Romero, I mean, their ability second to none. I don't think it's be unpopular, but it's the type of profile that we need necessarily in a relegation battle. That's not me saying let's drop them both and put them on the bench. But I look at Kevin Danson and go, Mr. Consistent, banging in performances, and consistency brings you results over time. And Van der Ven and Romero, if one or both of them are not fully committed or they're not performing every week, then ultimately you have to make that difficult decision and go, look, right now for the interest of the club, you're not in the team. Ultimately, if your head's elsewhere or you're not putting in the performance. But it'd be Archie Gray to answer your question. And this might surprise people, but it'd be James Maddison when he's back. I just think the energy that he'll bring in terms of on and off the pitch, great, kind of profile and role model, I suppose, for the club. Of course, it'd take him a long while to get match fit. I just think the excitement of him coming back alone will get the fans to propel the team over the line. Maddison coming back will encourage the players to get them over the line. I'm not saying, oh my God, it's like having this incredible kind of athlete come back. But I'm saying it will make a difference, little things like that, because it's going to come down to the fine margins. Whatever happens, I'm absolutely convinced, unfortunately, because of nerves and tension, it will go down to the final day. I'm convinced by that for all these clubs, really, other than maybe Leeds. If they get a win, they could be okay. I think it goes down to the final day, at least between 3 of the 4 clubs. But it will be Archie Gray. I've gone around the houses, but Archie Gray to answer your question, which will surprise some people, but I think he deserves his praise.
Deserves his praise, absolutely. Under Igor Tudor, he played in 4 different positions during that 43-day spell. Just 7 games, 4 different positions is absolutely insane. And like you mentioned, certain players, maybe I can add in the name Jed Spence. These are players that have attitude issues, and I would necessarily say that they don't get on with it, what they're asked to do. But Archie Gray, like you mentioned, head down, absolutely no questions asked, gets on with it and delivers really good performances, especially recently. And with his age, he's shown much more maturity than players that we were expecting to be the leaders of the group, to be taking the game.
Yeah, the whole team combined. I'd say Archie Gray showed more maturity, showed more quality, head above shoulders at his age, now just 20 years of age, was 19, he's getting a habit of saying that, by the way, but more than the whole entire squad put together. And that's seriously not a complete exaggeration, because Gray's got stuck in and he's not someone that you'll hear complaining or anything like that, or kind of strolling. I mean, you can tell he's upset. And again, it's not about the show, right? And like people say, Porro's for show. I don't think it is. It's someone that cares. And I know that he doesn't bring you the quality. When you have people who care, at least you know they're going to fight, Martin. Because as much as this is difficult to say, I know, but of course the priority is staying in the Premier League. But really, the minimum you ask for fans is to fight, right? We can't, I certainly can't, and we can't control in terms of whether we go down or not. And the players have most, but not all of that control, in my belief. But all they can do is give 110%, within reason, fly into every tackle. Want to play. Seriously, I'm not just saying this, and I know it's because of the love for the club. But if I was right now, I'd be banging on the manager's door. If I'm not playing already, please can I play? I would be like Archie Gray. We need more Archie Grays in that team that lead by example. I reckon he's a great example off the pitch as well. Probably a bit quiet, but sometimes you need that. Saying less is more. I'm a big believer in that sometimes. So we need that kind of profile. And I like Romero, and I hate to single him out, but unfortunately so often, because of what he says and does, he's the best example to give, but it's not reflective on Romero, the whole squad. But when Romero calls that second goal that we conceded against Forest pathetic and stupid is the exact word he used, I should correct myself, stupid was the word he used, then walk off on the Sky interview without saying too much, when all that was stupid in my view was him not tracking back and showing a commitment to the badge. That's the way I view it. And Tottenham have to view these 7 games. There'll be moments where teams are in on goal, Martin, or they go 1-0 up. Don't let the heads drop, because it's not over until it's over in terms of the individual game and the relegation as a whole. And you should never give anything up. And that's what it's about. I know this squad hasn't got quality, but the thing we've been lacking, apart from a couple of games under Tudor, or a couple of games all season, really, if we've been honest, is fight. At least if we're going to go down with a fight. At the moment, we're going down without a fight, and that's the worrying thing. I talked to you about the building. Stop that building falling. It's going like that. At least stop it. Push it back a little bit. But no, at the moment, it's going to go like that. And I believe by the decision and the action that Tottenham have taken to change the manager is productive. It's the right thing to do. It's seeing what's going to happen, the inevitable, and trying their best to prevent it. Too little, too late, of course. We hope it will save us, though. They've got to get it right. It was everything positive or negative leads back to this managerial appointment. A lot lies on it. Either way, it's not going to be this Pep Guardiola. It's not going to be an incredible manager. We've got to get someone that, for me, for the short term, it has to be interim.
Exactly, I agree with you. And just one more thing that I will allude to with the building falling, and you've mentioned that we lack fight. Another thing that we lack is belief. It feels like everyone in this building that's falling is just sort of accepting of it, that, we're falling, we're going down, the players. And this is something the manager needs to change as well, because, you are still in control of that building falling. You don't have to have it falling. And just with...
Yes.
But the belief isn't enough. It's exactly what you mentioned. It's the fight. So I'd say it's the combination of fight and belief that can make this group remain and stay up and, play for your pride as well. So now, last question for you, Harry, to not waste any more of your time, because you've been absolutely phenomenal. That, it's gone much longer than I expected. But with Guglielmo Vicario's operation, it does maybe look like Antonin Kinski could be in goal for Sunderland. And you know how it is with Tottenham Hotspur and how things complicate. And it wouldn't surprise us, would it, if Vicario maybe doesn't play for the next 2 or 3 games. How much do you trust Antonin Kinski with his last performance being taken off in the 14th minute by Igor Tudor? Does that maybe damage his confidence, or could he turn from zero to hero?
I hope he does, but I'm going to sound like a nasty individual here. Tottenham has to come over Kinski. As much as I'd love Kinski to come in, redeem himself in that environment of the Stadium of Light, ignore their last 2 or 3 home results. They've been incredible at home this season, unbeaten for so long. Part of me went, can they, believe it or not, be unbeaten for the whole season at home? We're talking about a club that was expected and destined, even with the money they spent, to go straight back down. Sunderland are a noisy crowd. It's a difficult environment, the Stadium of Light. I think it's wrong for Kinski. I can think it's wrong. I'd put Brandon Austin in there, but again, you run the risk of someone that hasn't played. Listen, it's not rocket science for me. When you've got someone sitting on the bench that hardly plays, if plays at all, and they come on, it's going to be rusty. It's like being asked to do even stuff like admin work, right? If you haven't done it for so long, you're going to be rusty to start with. Even basic things in life, if you haven't done it, you're not going to be as quick or as good at it. That's the way I view it. So to throw Kinski into that type of game, it is beyond me. I know we're not in any cup competitions. That's not the right time to do it. Whereas look at someone like Trafford, because City have been in all the cup competitions, still are in all the competitions. They've been able to give him regular games. We haven't had that luxury of Kinski, which is our own fault, if we're honest with it. So it sounds nasty, me saying, no, I wouldn't play Kinski. I know for him, he probably desperate. It sounds weird, I know, but desperate to get back on the pitch and put it right. I'd want nothing more than that. I'm not going to moan if he is in the team, fully support him. We've got to get behind him. I just believe that Brandon Austin's been more consistent, and we're not just based this on Kinski's last game. If we look at Newcastle, I think it was when we played them. Liverpool might have been another. Kinski's really good with his distribution. Again, for Atletico, I know about that. But generally speaking, he's very good, but not with a shot stopping. And Sunderland don't create a lot of chances, but when they do, it's important they kept out the net. And I think Sunderland's a game that's not about the distribution, it's about the shot stopping, in particular from close range when Sunderland counter-attack. So thinking from a semi-tactical point of view, I would throw in Brandon Austin. It's an uncomfortable situation. I have no problem with Kinski being in there. I do expect him to be in there. And I know it sounds horrible, but Kinski's career, in my view, comes after, because that's important as well, but it's Tottenham right now. And I worry putting Kinski in there. I worry that the defence will be nervous. And when you have a nervous defence that doesn't trust the goalkeeper, that's a problem. And that's a massive problem. I can't express enough how I feel the defence have no confidence in Vicario. I actually think Vicario has no confidence in the defence, believe it or not. In particular, the defence have no confidence. But I think that's what it is. I think it's what it is, that they both have no confidence in each other. That's why you see that hesitation. And that's why we can see so many goals for me. I have to change that. You have to believe in each other, even secretly. And I just think when you don't believe in someone, you try and do their job, then you get in the way of their doing their job, then you don't do your actual job. That's the way that I view it, and that's a recurring problem at Tottenham. A small problem that's turned into a big problem. But I would start Austin. I expect Kinski to start, though, and have no problem with him starting.
Yeah. I think you mentioned it perfectly, that maybe the defence will be nervous with Kinski in goal. But you know what? I'm going to back Anthony Kinski. Of course, there is an element of bias because, Czech Republic and Slovakia are very close in my heart. So there is an element of bias there. But, I feel like the actual desperation of him wanting to start, a reflection of that against Atletico Madrid. He wanted to show that he's good enough to be the number one goalkeeper, which led to him, it becoming too big in his head and ultimately making that second huge mistake that he made. So I think he shouldn't be feeling that desperation, and he needs a mental coach to be speaking to him right now. Look, Vicario's injured, and just do the basics. Just don't try and be too creative. Just don't try and do something extra. Just be basic. Give the defence confidence. You are the man in charge in goal to give the defence confidence. Make 2-3 good saves, remain composed, because Anthony Kinski does play with his chest out, and it does maybe add a little bit of confidence into his game, but making stupid mistakes ultimately kills off any confidence in front of you in the defence. So, Harry, to wrap it up right now, you mentioned 2 names, Harry Redknapp or Sean Dyche. Now, if you could only pick one of these 2, who are you going for to save Tottenham Hotspur from the sinking ship that, Thomas Frank and Igor Tudor have all alluded to?
I said that Sean Dyche would be my leading candidate. In terms of the manager position, the interim manager position, it would be Sean Dyche. Yes. I'm going to break the question up here. Tell me if I'm breaking the rules. I'd have Harry Redknapp in there as an assistant. I would have him as assistant, and that's what I do. So it'd be both ultimately, but Sean Dyche would be the guy in charge because he will know more about tactics. And I think it's gone largely beyond that point. I do think you need a man motivator in there, not someone who's going to go in and shout at them, because I think confidence is low. Loss after loss after loss, poor performance after poor performance, battering after battering from the media, from fans. Need someone that's going to lift them. So Dyche will deliver, training ground and on the pitch. Redknapp will be the man motivator. Together they could work well. Do I think that either of them will be, by the way, involved in this Tottenham coaching setup on an interim or permanent basis? No, I don't. I don't think it'd be either of them. If I had to predict, it's difficult. I think it would be probably someone that maybe fans don't want it to be. I don't see us being able to convince De Zerbi until the summer unless there's significant money compensated or a very easy get out. I don't see that happening. I think they go for quite a large look. I don't know who they go for. Maybe Tim Shear would be involved. I'm not sure they will go for, so we'll dodge that question. But I don't think it'd be Dyche, or I don't think it'd be Harry Redknapp either.
Wow, that's a very good one, Harry. That's a very good one. And you know what? I'll add to that with De Zerbi. Even if they do add some, easy get-out clause, he won't take it because of the reputation that you mentioned. You don't want on your CV a risk of relegating Tottenham Hotspur of the size and the magnitude that we are. Thank you, Harry, so much. I hope you enjoyed it because I definitely did. It was a pleasure having you on the channel.
I did.
You're an absolute legend and keep doing what you're doing. So if you would like to tell anyone on your socials to go and check you out, of course, I've already, given them a hint of your YouTube channel.
Martin, firstly, thank you very much for having me. I've really enjoyed coming on. If you ever need a guest, it'd be an absolute pleasure to talk to you again. And it always is great to talk to you. And if you don't know as well, Martin is a regular guest on my Scarfe Spurs Talk podcast. So always good to have him on and view his input. And I love the energy and positivity that Martin brings. So when he's on the podcast, I know it's going to be a good episode. And I genuinely mean that. But please do support Martin in particular and also his channel in the Spurs Pursuit. Amazing stuff there. And I check out it quite a bit and I always enjoy everything I see. In terms of me, you can follow me at Harry Scarfe22 across all social media, daily Spurs and football content on X, on TikTok, on Instagram. I have 2 podcasts now, which is a bit crazy to try and promote. So I've got Scarfe's Personal, which is the main podcast, the award-winning Tottenham podcast. The podcast, it's not just a Tottenham podcast, it's one without, it's one with clear principles as well. And that means without an agenda, without toxicity, without politics. Because unfortunately, I think you look at, and I want to in particular target anybody, is I'm not even in my thinking doing this, but across the board, politics is brought into football, in my view, in terms of Premier League, far too much. I believe toxicity is a big part and agendas a certain part. If a host has a certain opinion, it's influence on the question. So for me, I pride myself, I will give my opinion. I won't shy away from my opinion. But I always try and be fair in my question and cover all sides of the argument. And my new podcast is called Scarfe Talks Premier League Podcast, which is now also on the X page. There's daily Premier League news and coverage. So as you can imagine, that is quite a lot to keep up with. That is good fun. And yeah, it's 2 episodes a week as well about Premier League. Because my belief with that is that Premier League fans should be able to come together, like-minded Premier League fans, even of opposition clubs, even of rival clubs, come together, have a debate, have a conversation without an end in an argument. That's the belief. So yeah, I've got the 2 podcasts there, and that is most of it really. But Martin, thank you very much for having me. It's been great to talk to you.
Brilliant, Harry. Fantastic. I will leave both the channels in the comments below so anyone can check you out there. So anyway, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe. And Harry, I'm sure I'll have you on once again on this podcast. And I'm due to come onto your channel next week. So I'm very excited.
Love it.
Perfect.
I look forward to having you. And I hope we're in the Premier League next time I come on. Let me add that.
Yes, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Hopefully.
Thank you so much. See you later, Harry. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.